I knew at age 16 I wanted to go to a business school. Chose the Ivy Business. It wasn't called the Ivy Business School. The Ivy family hadn't given their 15 mil. Called the Western Business School. And I knew I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. So I came back to Toronto. If I'd stayed at Western, I wouldn't have been a lawyer. I developed some bad habits, drinking, and other things. So I moved back with my mother. And I went to Osgoode Hall Law School. And I always knew I wanted to be a corporate lawyer.
Right.
That's what I've been doing since 1973.
You're actually noted by the National Post as one of Canada's most connected. And that's based on the connections that you've come about and you've built over time. Tell us about two like Vince Carter and Donald Trump. How did that come about? What did you do with them? Where has that gone?
Well, I'll tell you about Trump first. I got a call in 1995. The Ontario government wanted to sell off their casino in Niagara Falls because they want someone to build a big trade center and convention center. And anytime government sells assets, you have to have an RFP, request for proposal.
Right.
And Donald called me because he was a friend of the owner. Before everybody's time, there was an owner of an Edmonton Oilers hockey team, Peter Pocklington. I sat on the board, and they knew each other. So he called me and hired me to put together a team and bid on the casino. And 1995, Trump wasn't what he is today. He was going through financial problems, going through a divorce with some lady called Marla Maples, was well known but didn't have the money. But I got to know him very well. And one thing you find with successful people, he's really smart, got a very high ego, and I had an interesting story. One night I came home, I was at a Leaf hockey game, came home about 11 o'clock, and my wife said, "We got a bit of a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" My 10-year-old daughter had answered the phone. The guy said, "This is Donald Trump, can I talk to your father?" My daughter says, "No, it's not."
Could you imagine that being like, you pick up your phone, this is Donald Trump, I want to talk to your dad. What are you going to say as a kid?
She says, "No, it's not." He asks again, "Yes, this is Donald Trump. Could I talk to your father?" She says, "No, it's not." He said one more time, "This is Donald Trump. Can I talk to your father?" My 10-year-old daughter says, "If you're Donald Trump, I'm Madonna," and she slammed the phone down. So at 8 o'clock the next morning, I get a call in the office. "Ralph, it's Donald." She says, "You're very, very cute, 10 years old. Did you not tell her you and I were very close friends?" And I said, "Well, geez, I don't talk about my business." And I'm someone who, because I run political campaigns, my daughter would get calls from prime ministers, mayors, premiers, whatever. But she had just seen, she told me, Entertainment Tonight or Extra or something like that. And Donald was going through a messy divorce. So she thought it was one of my friends fooling around.
Right.
That's my Donald Trump story. But I got to know him very well, and very smart guy. Vince hired me when he had a problem. He had an agent who actually, his initial agent went to jail for money laundering. So his mother called me, and I'd always acted for sports teams, and I never wanted, I could have been an agent, I didn't want to be an agent. But so I met with Vince and his mother, and the more you say I'm not the right guy, the more they want to hire you. And so I agreed that I would do their legal work, and I'd help them hire an actual agent, which we did. We hired a guy named Mark Steinberg of IMG, who actually at the time had one client whose name was Tiger Woods. It's kind of a good client to have.
Right.
So he hired, he negotiated, and I helped him, and we did a 5-year, $96 million contract. Vince is actually back tomorrow night, and I was talking, the general manager of the Raptors, a guy by the name of Masai Ujiri, very close friend. And the Raptors are doing really, really well this year. And I said to him, "You know what? Vince didn't leave on the best of terms. Why don't you guys show some class at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment?" He's created a lot of the young basketball players around. If you take a look, the last 2 years we've had #1 picks. I think it's because of Vince Carter. They watched him in the dunk thing. So you might see tomorrow night. I'm going to be there, and I hope they do. It'd be the right thing to do. And I think Toronto's ready to. He left on very bad terms, but I knew him as just a young man. I knew his mother, and I quite liked him.
Yeah, it's been a long time though, so hopefully there's some reconciliation there that happens, right?
We'll see.
We'll
breaking
see.
news. I don't know.
We'll see. We certainly shall see. Moving along, continuing with sports law though, you have represented a lot of people. You've represented some teams as well. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about maybe your most memorable team, maybe the Edmonton Oilers, if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, there are two teams that are memorable to me. I was the lawyer for, as I said before, a guy named Peter Pocklington, is a interesting entrepreneur from, well, he wasn't that interesting, but But Edmonton, and he owned the Edmonton Oilers hockey team. We signed Wayne Gretzky when he was 17. I got to know Wayne very well. And they ended up winning, I think, 5 Stanley Cups. And so I did all of their stuff, traveled with the team, got to know them. And Glenn Sather, who was the coach, has now moved on, and he's the general manager of the Rangers. And I still, one of the advantages I've had in sports, it's spectacular because as a sports fan and being a sports lawyer, I'm getting paid for doing things I like. And one of the things I do, I take great pride in texting Masai Ujiri when I don't like what they're doing, Glenn Sather when I don't like what the Rangers are doing. And my deal with all my sports guys that I know is, remember, I know nothing about sports, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but you're allowed to send me a text and criticize my abilities as a lawyer, ability to run a law firm. So I do it all the time. And it's interesting, Ryerson, where I teach now, has the number 3 ranked basketball team in the country. And if you ever get a chance, I grew up in Toronto, and Maple Leaf Gardens is a place I grew up, went to hockey games and rock concerts and things like that. Ryerson has taken over. It's spectacular. It's a spectacular facility. If you want to see good basketball, it's virtually free. Go to see the Ryerson men are ranked number 3 in the country, and the women are now ranked number 8. They lost to Windsor, the number 1 team in the country, by 3 points. So even our women's team. So I'm very passionate about Ryerson.
Anybody go to Ryerson in here? Woo! So you know a little bit about Ralph, what Ralph's talking about, right? Yes. Okay, awesome. We started with law.
I did.
We just wrapped up with sports. Now going into politics. I mean, what does this man not do? You're a big deal in the political sphere. What motivated you to get involved with politics?
Well, I'm embarrassed to tell you that I got involved in politics in the late 70s, early 80s, kind of as a business development tool. In law firms at that time, when I was with a big law firm, there was no such thing as marketing. You didn't ask for business. It was just business came in because you were an old waspy law firm. But I had decided that networking was important, and I said, well, I need a tool, whether it be a charity or something. I chose politics. Then I had to choose a party. So I said, okay, I guess I'm a conservative. So I'm a conservative. I decided, well, the best people I want to meet would be the people with money because they may be able to hire me. So I became a political fundraiser.
Right.
So now, since I got involved, I did get motivated because I believe political involvement is really important. We take the opportunities we have in this country to vote for granted. A lot of people, I mean, at Ryerson, my class represents everything good about Toronto. 50% visible minorities, 50% women. And I say to the students, a lot of your parents came from countries where they didn't have the opportunity to vote. Don't take it for granted. Don't complain about what you get. Go out and get involved.
Right.
And so I've been involved in every federal and provincial campaign since 1980 and every mayoralty campaign since 1980. And in fact, one of my MBA classes, first class, I bring in great speakers, but first class, the students get to ask me questions. And one of the students, like Michael Murphy, MBA student, said, I Googled you, I checked your record. You got a pretty lousy record as a political organizer. I said, are you an NDP socialist? Where'd you come from? So I actually went back and I checked my record.
Right.
Interesting. And he was right. At the provincial and federal level, whether you're a liberal or you're conservative, your record's going to be 500. You're going to win with Mulrooney, you're going to lose with Chrétien. You'll win with Mike Harris, you'll lose with Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne. But at the municipal level, I was 9-2-1. I said, well, I came back next week and I said, Murphy, 9-2-1. And it was interesting. This was about a year ago, and the previous, and my 2 losses at the mayoralty, one was, I had a guy 4 years ago by the name of George Smitherman, chaired his campaign. He had asked me to guarantee him $1.5 million. I got him $2.2 million, and we lost by 12 points to Rob Ford. And and I'll make no comments about that. This time I was able to stay out of the first time ever. I stayed out of the municipal campaign. I got contracted by CTV and CP24 to become a political analyst. So I pretended I knew what I was talking about and didn't have to.
I remember that.
You remember that?
You did a good job.
I hid out. So I was on Ledru at noon, couple days a week and then commentated on the election.
Awesome. Now, you know what? It's funny because you said you're a conservative, but you've pretty much represented folks across party lines too.
Well, I'm a conservative. I know people across party
okay.
lines very well. I mean, the premier, Kathleen Wynne, has come to my MBA class 3 years in a row, and I run campaigns against her.
Right.
So I think she comes because she's a professional politician. She gets to debate me, and she's going to beat me because she's a pro. But she's coming back on the 27th for the third year in a row. So I know her very well. Nice lady, completely wrong and is screwing this province up. But she's, and I know this is on record, so she's going to watch it. She's going to phone me here.
Oh yeah, I might have, you know what? I got to bring her in here to defend herself. What do you guys think? Might have to get her to come in January.
I think that, and she won the last election. She should not have won the last election. The track record of the Liberal government with the gas scandals and e-health and wasting money, it should have been a gimme, a freebie for our guys, and we blew it. We actually blew it, and she won. And to give her credit, she beat me and beat me bad, and I had to be on CTV with Ken Shaw on election night.
Uh-huh.
And I did it as a favor to him. And about the election, the voting booths are closed at 9 o'clock. At 9:20, I'm seeing the results, and I'm seeing it's going to be a Liberal majority. I'm depressed here. And Shaw came by, and I said, Ken, I want to thank you for inviting me, but can I leave? He says, no, you're here till it's over. So I was stuck there all night, and I gave my analysis. I don't think anything of it. 3 days later, I went to a luncheon. Hillary Clinton was in town launching her book. Mm-hmm. And there were 2,000 people at the Sheraton Center. And I listened. I'm not a great Hillary Clinton fan, but she spoke very well, very eloquent. And I'm walking out, and I hear Ralph, and I turn around. It's the Premier, Kathleen Wynne. So I went up and said hello, and she said, I watched you on CTV News. You were very tough on me and my government. Very fair, but very tough. Make sure you invite me back to Ryerson. So she's coming next Thursday. So I like her. And one of the things about politics, it's important to get involved, but don't make it personal.
Don't make it personal. That's a good piece of advice. Awesome. And you know what? Talking back about Ryerson now, you've got a lot of business cards. A lot of names that you have for yourself based on what you've done over time. And being at Ryerson, how did that come about?
Well, it was an accident. I mean, I'm the 3 years ago, I'm the lawyer for Ryerson, a big client, do a lot of legal work, and I'm having lunch one day with the president, Sheldon Levy, who said to me over lunch, he said, you ever consider teaching? No. Would you like to teach? No. He said, we have a title at Ryerson called Distinguished Visiting Professor. I said, I got to tell you, I'm a political bagman, a lawyer. No one's ever used the word distinguished in my company. So I agreed to, but I did it, I wanted to do it different. And one thing about the DNA Ryerson is we do things differently. So I said, what I'd like to do is bring in guest speakers, people you couldn't otherwise get, to enter into a dialogue with the students. And so that's what we've done. So we've had some fabulous speakers over the years. Kathleen Wynne, I've had Brian Burke of the Leafs, yep. Paul Beeston, great criminal lawyer Eddie Greenspan. Last week I had a really interesting guy. I don't know if you watch Dragon's Den. I usually get Arlene Dickinson every year. This year there's a new dragon, a guy by the name of Mike Weckerly.
There you go, that's right.
So Weck showed up at my class on Thursday, and he was Weck. I mean, he's something else. I went up, I guess 2 years ago. He raised a lot of money for charity.
Right.
And here's a guy who founded GMP, one of the great Griffith McBurney investment banks, made hundreds of $1 million for people, and hundreds of $1 million for himself, runs a great charity event up at his farm in Caledon called Weckfest. Mm-hmm. And but he doesn't look like, he's got tattoos all over his body, he's got long hair. He didn't look like an investment banker, but I go up to his thing on Saturday night a year ago, and I met someone who I didn't know called Snoop Dogg. Do you know Snoop Dogg?
Snoop Dogg.
I actually met the guy here. And he was performing at Weckfest. He probably raised $1 million for Weckfest and his charity. He's an interesting character. And he's a client, and he would just, I think he's. I was there. You were at Weckfest.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was there. And what else? You could ask me. I don't want to talk about Weckfest, but I was there.
Awesome. And you know what? And continuing with the different titles that you've had, I guess jumping across the pond, as they'd say, Kingdom of Morocco.
Well,
How did that
Well,
come
that
about?
actually came, unfortunately, thanks to my wife. I have a wife who was born in Casablanca, educated, got 2 MAs at the Sorbonne in Paris. I've been involved in the film business. I was on the board of TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, for 20 years. She runs her own French language film festival called Cinefranco. Brings in 25 or 30 films from the French-speaking world, subtitled. I raised the money for it. And Morocco was one of the feature countries. And I met the ambassador through it, and she asked me, would I host a reception for the Minister of Industry and bring in some of the business people? So I did. Now, the Minister of Industry from Morocco, 4 years ago, when I met him, was a Harvard-educated MBA, Microsoft, former Microsoft executive, very North Americanized. 6 handicap golfer. And he went, I met with him, hosted the reception, and about 3 months later, I get a call from the ambassador and said, the minister has met with the king, and they'd like to offer you the position of Honorary Consul for the Kingdom of Morocco. Now, I get red license plates. That's pretty heavy duty.
Red license plates.
And I told, it's interesting, it comes with a title. I told my wife she had to call me Son Excellence. She said, not a chance here, so. But you can call me Son Excellence.
Yeah, His Excellency. I think we can call him His Excellency for the rest of the night, just based on that. And you know what? I guess one final question then. I'm going to make this kind of personal, if you guys don't mind. How can I own my own club? I'm just kidding. How did you get started with music?
Well,
What's next?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I don't fit the profile of someone that goes to a club or own a club or a chairman of a club. But what happened was when Vince was here, Vince Carter, you may not remember this, bought a nightclub called Inside on Richmond Street. And what had happened, how we got into that, his mother called me, and his mother was very controlling. She said, Vince wants to buy an interest in this club Inside. You got to talk him out of it. I brought him down. He had financial statements. He said, geez, I really want to have my own place. I want to have my own table. I said, Vince, we just signed a contract for $96 million over 6 years. We've got about $15 million a year in endorsements. You can get a table anywhere you want. You know? In any event, he liked it, and I turned it over to one of the young lawyers. We bought it. 3 months later, he calls me and says, geez, I'm not really happy at you. What would you be unhappy with me? You never come to my club. I said, well, it's not the right demo. I don't go to clubs. He said, I've identified a new club I want to buy. Do you know anyone down at the exhibition? There's a big building, the horticultural building. I said, well, in fact, I used to be chairman of the board. Like, pictures on the wall. I know everybody down there. He said, well, I have a new partner who's in town, and we want to buy the horticulture building and open a club. And I said, true story. He said, who's your partner? He said, Prince. I said, who's he? He said, you don't know, do you?
Who's Prince?
So I had to phone
Who's the guy in purple?
I had to phone my kids who yelled at me. He said, Purple Rain, you idiot. How could you not know? No, it's a true story. So I went and so I phoned the exhibition, said, I represent Vince Carter and this fellow called Prince, and we want to buy, just true story, buy the club. So they said, well, geez, bad timing. Again, the exhibition did an RFP and said somebody else had won it. I said, who won it? He said, a young man by the name of Zlatko Starkovsky. I said, never heard of him. I said, why don't you have him call me? So I got a call, Zlatko Starkovsky. I said, I'm Ralph Lean. I represent Vince Carter and Prince. I want to buy you out of your lease that you got. So I just come down to the office. He came to the office, and this guy, true story, it's got to be 10 years ago, I think we've been open, is about 28 years old. And he had won a bid, and he had to commit, it was the old horticultural building, to spend $4 million to upgrade it. So I said, you know what, name your price. And he says, not for sale. He said, I've had a vision to have a club. I've got the $4 million. Everyone tells me I'm not going to be successful because all the clubs are in Richmond and Adelaide and the entertainment district. This is a destination, and it's 40,000 square feet. It's not for sale. So I had to go back to Vince and Prince and say, couldn't do it. He said, what'd you offer him? He said, nothing. He wouldn't take it. But a week later, I get a call from this young man, Zlatko Starkovsky. Can I come and see you? So he comes back down to the office and says, you know, I've thought about it, and having Vince and Prince as partners, I'm an operator. I know to run a club. Maybe there's a business deal. So I went back, I met with Vince and Prince, told them, not a bad idea. We can do a deal. we got deeper pockets. And as a lawyer, I could create something to put Zlatko on some performance guarantees. If he doesn't live up to them, we can blow him out with a shareholders agreement. But Vince and Prince wouldn't do it. And they're lucky they didn't, because what happened, timing is everything. About 6 months later, Vince ran into problems with the Raptors, got traded.
Yep.
Prince, who had been married, you probably didn't know it, or was living with a Canadian woman up on the bridal path, I called her Mrs. Prince. They split, and he left, and he's from Minnesota, if you can believe it. He probably went back to Minnesota. So about a year later, I get a call from this Zlatko Starkovsky, said, can I come and see you? He's come down. He said, I want to hire you. What do you want to hire me for? He was having some serious problems getting opened with the city because it was a heritage building and certain building codes and things like that. And I said, well, in law, you have to make sure you don't have a conflict. So I had to go back to Vince and Prince and say, do you have a problem? They said, no. So he hired me, and then about a week later, he showed up at my office and gave me a business card that said, Ralph Lean, Chairman Music. So I have a card called Chairman Music. I don't go very often. I used to, if they're, the problem is it opens on Saturday night, like 10:30, 11 when I go to sleep. So, but I do go in the summers. We have great outdoor, beautiful, we built these swimming pools now, and they have these beautiful, and I smoke cigars, although I got to speak to this Kathleen Wynn, who's got this new rule on no cigars, no smoking outside. So I call it the Ralph Lean, anti-Ralph Lean bylaw. So I'm not happy with that, but that's my history with a nightclub, so that's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Ralph Lean. Please give him a round of applause. So much behind one name. And I'm sure there are those who have some questions for him. So anybody who's got some questions, I'm going to be coming around right now with my magical mic. And
thank you so much for that presentation. That was really actually just a fabulous, fabulous history of your the past few years. So my question, I guess, is just more of, if you knew then what you know now about business, about your history of working with people, and so much more, what would be one of your takeaways and your lessons learned over the years?
Well, that's a good question. It's interesting because they asked me that my first year at Ryerson, advice for success. And I made things up. I didn't know what I was talking about. And afterwards, the students came out to me and said, boy, that's the most insightful thing. Could you write that down and give it to us? I said, to be honest with you, I don't remember what I said. So I had to watch the webcast to see what I say, and they make me do it every year. So I actually brought it because I thought somebody might ask. Now it's called the Ralph Lean, what do I call it? The Ralph Lean rules for success. Now, these, trust me, are very trite. You're going to say, this is the dumbest thing, but every one of my classes thinks it's important, and it's quite important for people your age, because not all of you follow these rules, and some of them you should. Let me tell you some of them here. I got to read them. Number one, very common. I return all calls, all emails, and all texts promptly. I find my younger clients often don't return them at all, and that's just not good. Number two, punctuality. Again, your generation, I don't know whether you're Y, X, Q, whatever you are, I don't know, but punctuality is a sign of respect for the person you're meeting, and I recommend it. Something I've done, I've treated everybody the same. You never know when the person you're dealing with is going to be the other side of the table of some kind. So I treat everybody the same. Not well, but the same, and that's something that's important. I learned something. Woody Allen had an interesting comment. He said, 90% of success is showing up. And I started in practice, before people were doing it, to saying networking is really important. So I showed up all the time. Even you would look at something and say, you know what, I'm really not going to meet anyone. But you know what? The times you least expect it, you'll meet someone that could change your life. Research is really important, and your generation should be a lot easier than mine, because you can Google everything. I now never go to a meeting with someone without my assistant having given me information. So I know everything about them, and it's really important, it's helpful. I teach the students at Ryerson, really, communication. Both written and verbal communication are really, really important. And because I'm hiring somebody, I'm interviewing somebody, Two people, equal skills, equal degrees, the ability to communicate both written and oral. Because I'm hiring someone who's going to deal with the public. I'm not necessarily hiring the smartest person who's going to go in the back room and analyze things. I teach people listening. People don't listen. You got to listen to the person you're talking to. Look them in the eye and listen and be able to respond. Nothing can replace hard work. I learned it my first year of practice, law practice. I had a boss. I knew what time he came in. I was there 10 minutes before him. I knew what time he left. I stayed till 10 minutes afterwards. But I worked hard. Nothing can replace it. And this is really important because expectations are important. I wrote down under promise and over deliver. Remember that, under promise and over deliver. So those are my Ralph Lean rules for success. Apologize for them being trite, but
We have one more question from this gentleman over here. State your name and your question.
My name is Matt Black, and of all the things that you've accomplished in your lifetime, what would you say is the most memorable thing that you've been a part of, and why?
you know, I've done so many things, but number one thing in your life is your family. Don't forget your family. I mean, everything else is important. So respect your parents. I've got 3 great young kids. So I wouldn't name one thing. I've been really lucky in my life. Being an international lawyer, I'm paid by clients to go all over the world and negotiate deals. And as having a big practice, I get people to do the real hard work. I mean, I'm sure I'd be happy being a corporate lawyer in the back room just doing documents. I get to structure deals, and I'm able to finance deals because I know the bankers and whatever. So family, respect your parents and your family. Thank you.
Hi, Ralph. Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Bobby. You and I connected earlier today.
We did.
I wanted to ask about how you dealt with failure in your professional life.
Well, you know, you fail all the time. There's different definitions of failure. You know, my first year of law practice, I got fired. I actually got fired. Nothing to do with me. The 2 senior partners in the law firm hated each other, and one of them took it out at me. Says, "You work for this guy, you're gone." So you got to, just get up off the ground. And Glenn Sather of the Rangers taught me something, and he said it applied to the sports business, applies to life. Things are never as bad as you think, and they're never as good as you think. Just keep an even keel, and you worry that failure, you're the only one. We've all failed. I mean, I've failed countless times, and you just got to be positive. You're confident in yourself, you're going to get up, and you're going to be successful.
100%. And once again, everybody, please thank Ralph Lean for his words, for his presence.